How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video I am going to go over the APA King Cobra TF. So I just did a review on the Mamba 34, and since a lot of the features are basically the same on the bow, what I'll do is I will put that on right after I get done talking right here, and that'll go over the features of the bow, and then I'm going to shoot this through the chronograph and everything like that. Now, last year is the first time I laid hands on an APA bow at the Great American Outdoor Show, and I have to say I was very impressed with some of the thought that they have put into these bows. I'm just going to go over some of them here with you. I'm going to start up here at the top. They have a little hook on here for hanging your bow, and it's nice because when you go to take it off, you don't have to fight through and worry about your quiver, if your quiver's on there, or your string, so just you can take it right off and go with it. I also like the way they have the handle. It's actually very comfortable for carrying. Like if you're walking in, that's just a comfortable feel for holding it. And it's thinner, like, with your grip being as fat as it is, I actually find I have to switch hands a lot because it gets uncomfortable after a while, or I carry it with the string. But having that skinnier little grip, that's more comfortable. I think I'd be able to carry it a little farther without switching hands on that. I also like there's a little groove in here for helping you make sure that your arrow is square on there. There's some neat things built into the bow right here that I want to talk about that I just was really impressed with when I saw it. So one, they have a maple leaf, it's a Canadian manufacturer, but it's actually a broadhead wrench. And there's also a little part for turning your nocks. And there's a broadhead sharpener built right into the bow, and I personally like to use fixed blade broadhead, so I think with a fixed blade that's particularly helpful. And this little pin right here comes out, and you can actually field press the bow to work on it right in the field if you needed to, which I think is a great idea. So another thing too that I noticed right when I touched the bow is it has this soft finish to it. They're calling it soft touch finish, and it really does feel nice. And I've never picked up a bow in this year or in recent years that has had that nice feel to it. So I definitely would encourage you to pick one of these up and just hold it just to get a feel. It does have a solid limb, but it also has a double yoke system. So I think that I always like the double yoke system because if you want to manipulate for cam lean, it's easy to do that. So let's go ahead and shoot the bow through the chronograph, and we're going to start off at 70 pounds. I'm going to shoot a 350 grain arrow, a 450 grain arrow, and a 550 grain arrow, and we'll just see what we come up with. King Cobra. Okay, this is the King Cobra at 70 pounds. I'm going to start with the 350 grain arrow. Back wall's same as the other. Okay, so King Cobra, 65 pounds, starting off with the 325 grain arrow. Back wall feels the same at 65 as it does at 70. Alright, now I'm back at the home office, I'll call it, and in the last video if you watched, I went over the APA Mamba. In this one, as you know, I'm going over the King Cobra, so I want to go over the data now that I found. And I have to say that the King Cobra was a very impressive bow for as fast as this bow is, and as short as the brace height is. It really didn't move, like in my hand. When I was shooting, it didn't have like a lot of hand shock, which you might think from a bow that's tweaked out to produce a lot of speed. So now we're going to the 425 grain tip, and I have to say that for such a speed bow, I am impressed with how, we talk about that dead in the hand feeling. I mean, this thing doesn't want to jump out of your hand, which is impressive for me. I mean, shooting at this speed, and I mean, it doesn't feel like it wants to jump out of your hand. It's just right there. That's pretty nice. Very impressive. Very impressed with that. Let me go over the numbers here, and then I'll talk a little bit more before finishing. So I will point out that brace height was only 5 inches, so that's a pretty short brace height. Some people think that the larger the brace height, the more forgiving a bow is. So that's why some people look at the brace height. But having that short brace height also gives you more impact on the arrow. The string is acting on the arrow for a longer period of time, which enables it to produce a faster speed. So as we look at the 70-pound pull, 350 grain arrow, we're coming in at 346 feet per second. With the 450 grain, it's 310, 550 grain, 282. Now, I mentioned this in the last video, and I need to mention it again. If these noise readings are actually skewed because of the environment, which is why I did what I did this year. I had a control bow. If you look on the right, I had the control environment. The decibel meter readings came in at 78 decibels. On this location, they came in at 81.7. So we have about, a little over a 3 decibel meter reading difference. The reason for that in this location is it's a small shop. I mean, the target was only about 8-10 feet or whatever it was away from where I was shooting. So it's very tight and close. And the sound of the arrow hitting the target may actually be louder than the sound of the bow going off. In most locations where I'm shooting, the target's about 20 yards away, and the highest sounding register on the decibel meter is the bow, because I'm 20 yards from the target. And I can always verify that by the spikes in the audio curves on my editing software. However, like I said, in this situation, they were coming higher. So when we look at the noise readings, really, to be fair, we need to back off about 3 decibels or so, just so you know. And I just try to give some kind of data as far as a noise, because it's one thing to say it's a quiet bow. I was just trying to create a number for that. But it was a quiet bow. And if we look at the vibration meter readings, I mentioned this in the other videos. I just want to mention it here. These numbers, I just wanted to give some kind of a number, because it's one thing to say that it's dead in the hand or it doesn't move. It just, there's not much vibration. But I wanted to give a reading, a number. But what I discovered is, even the faintest alteration in the grip can change the vibration meter reading and how much vibration is being detected in that meter. So take those readings with a grain of salt. I made an effort to provide that kind of data for you, but really this was a very good bow when it came to vibration. Very little vibration. I was very impressed with that. Looking down at the bow when it was at 65-pound pull, 5 grain per pound arrow, look at this, 345 feet per second. That's 1 foot per second difference than when it was at 70 pounds with a 350 grain arrows. Folks, I've tested maybe 8-10 bows so far, and this bow was the closest to the 70-pound production at 65 pounds with that number. 1 foot per second difference. That impressed me. So congratulations, APA, for putting that out. We looked down at 425, came in at 305, and at 525, 276. So obviously the heavier arrows made more of an impact on the 65-pound pool as it got heavier, as far as slowing it down. Again, the decibel meter readings, I'd say, aren't so reliable. As you're looking at them, subtract off about 3 and you're going to see more like where this bow would be at. It is a nice quiet bow. So as I mentioned in my last video on the Mamba, these bows are the most hunter-oriented bow that I've ever handled. Having the broadhead wrench built in, having the broadhead sharpener built in, being able to remove that little peg and press the bow anywhere you're at. Those are all things, if you're a mile or 2 miles deep in the forest, which I often find myself, and you have something go wrong, you bang your bow on something, you can actually work on some stuff right there. You can even turn knocks with that little knock thing. I usually just clip it on my string and turn it, but still, the fact that they thought to try to provide everything for people, that's pretty cool. And as I mentioned in my last video on this brand of bow, I have personal preferences regarding the back wall, the way it feels. These readings came in about 5 out of 10 as far as how soft the back wall was, or how solid it was, and how easy it came off the back wall. I never got to try this bow with the limb stop, which is an additional $100 to get the limb stop option. To me, you know, you're spending a lot of money, and then to have to spend another $100 if you're the type of person that wants a limb stop, that is a little bit, for me, hard to swallow because I have very little money to work with usually. But there are people out there who have that kind of cash flow and might want to check that out. And my curiosity would be is on the limb stop setting, can I make some modifications to where it stays on the back wall a little better in the valley? There's a lot of bows out there where you can actually, the let off is determined by where they set the draw stop peg. So by increasing the let off, they also increase how deep that valley is, and it stays on that back wall better. If you could do something like that with the APA, and maybe you can, this would be a super serious contender for me. Stay tuned for the next video. Coming up next, I'm going to start going over some of the elite compound bows. Until then, take care and God bless you.